This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, all right, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the session. So, today I'm going to talk about CAPM. So, CAPM is Certified Associate Project Management. It's a certification, as you know. So, this is from PMI. So, in fact, why I'm talking about this particular topic is that I think many of you may be familiar that from 2023 Jan onwards, there are some changes which is going to happen as far as the certification of CAPM is concerned. So I thought of making a short introduction about this particular area. So, so if you go to PMI website, so as you are able to see on the screen, so I'm going to talk about what are the changes in the upcoming session. I mean, upcoming examination details. So at present, so if you look into the CAPM, so if you have to go download the CAPM examination content outline, so which has been prepared somewhere in 2018, and it's going to be running till at least end of this year. So from January 2023 onwards, so exam update is going to happen. Okay. So just to give the background about what is present and what is going to be the future. So at present, the examination content outline is straightforward. So we know that if you study sixth edition, so in the sixth edition we are having guide section and also you are having a standard for project management. So particularly in the guide section, we are having 13 lessons. So it starts with introduction and then project environment and then role of the project manager. Then the rest of the 10 knowledge areas like integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, and resources, communications, and risk management, procurement, and stakeholder. Right. So it's very straightforward. And also in the examination, if you know tools and techniques and some of the basic things like definitions and also some of the basic things of the project management. So if you know that, that should be fine. But when we talk about from next year onwards, so you know that PMI has announced that almost I think a month back or 1.5 months back. So if you look into the examination content outline, so the focus is really changed. So here now instead of giving the lessons, so it was straightforward that how much of percentage of questions will come each of the lessons, right? So for example, if you look into the earlier examination content outline, introduction to project management 6%, project environment 6%, and so on. Now it is not like that. Now they have made the entire syllabus in terms of the domain, and also they have made it as under every domain we are going to have the task associated with that. Okay. So fundamentally we are having, there are about 4 domains which they have classified. So domain means basically as a person you have to demonstrate your knowledge about what we are doing exactly. Say for example, if you talk about domain 2, it says that predictive plan based methodology. So when we talk about a project lifecycle approach, you can carry out either it as a predictive, I mean broadly, either it can be a predictive or agile hybrid. Hybrid is a combination of predictive and agile, right? Now, if you are going to use it as predictive, so then how you are going to carry the entire project? Say, for example, how to carry the planning, which are the different techniques you have to use. So when you talk about a predictive approach, probably, for example, to develop the schedule, you may have to use the critical path method. But if you are going to use agile, that is not the way the estimation or the the scheduling will be done. So there it will be different. Within that schedule, how much we can create, particularly the user stories based on the story points estimation, we are going to estimate that, right? So that is the understanding you have to have it. So that is called a domain, and every domain is going to have some task associated with that. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to describe about that a few things fundamentally. So coming to the domains, so they have given domain one, project management fundamentals and the core concept. So basically it is going to talk about the fundamentals, like what is the definition of project, program, governance, or maybe portfolio, and what is the meaning of stakeholder, what are the competing constraints of the project, like that, okay? And then predictive, as I said, so if you are going to carry the project in a predictive way, so how the things should work. On the other hand, domain 3 talks about agile. So if you are going to work in an agile environment, how the things has to be carried out, right? And the other interesting area which PMI has added is about business analysis framework. So here, how to elicit the requirements, probably how to prioritize the requirements. So a few things I am going to talk about it, probably. I mean, looking into the examination content outline itself. And as far as the applications and other things, payment and other things are there, you know about that probably. It's going to be the same way which we are currently doing it. That is, once you attend that minimum requirement of the contact hour of education, which you have achieved, and after that you can submit the application to PMI. PMI will approve that, and then you have to pay the fee and other things. So for those details, you can refer to uh, PMI website. I don't want to get into all those things. So let us talk about the technical things. I mean, related to the subject rather, right? So this is the percentage of questions which has been distributed. See earlier, if you are able to recall, or maybe the present condition is that, so every knowledge area, sorry, every lesson is going to have some percentage of questions, 6%, 6%, like that, which we saw in the previous examination content outline. But from 2023, so this is the way the examination content outline will be, or the percentage of distribution questions. So first domain it is going to have 36%, the second is 17%, and so on. Right? And so the interesting part is that agile has been introduced. Okay, so and domain. So when we talk about the domain, high knowledge area that the project manager or the people has to demonstrate that. And every domain is going to carry some task. So task is are the activities, which is nothing but the responsibility which a person has to carry out to fulfill that particular domain. And to carry out every task, there should be some enablers. What can be the enablers? Enablers can be, for example, a situation or a tool or maybe a process like that, or any document like that, any situation like that. Okay. So, for example, let us see some other examples. Okay, let us say project management fundamental, or let us so what is the meaning of that? I'm going to explain. Um, let us say uh, examine the content of the explain the components of the adaptive plan. Okay, so adaptive means basically agile, right? So in agile is basically flexibility, and you may be aware of that. But all things we have to create a safe environment. We have to go through the agile manifesto also. So when we talk about agile, we have to understand the different frameworks also under that. So we are having extreme programming, we are having safe, a few things. Part of that it is not exactly the framework of agile, but beyond that. And also in the under the framework, we are having Crystal, we are having Scrum, we are having FDD, feature driven development, we are having DSDM, that is dynamic system and development method, and Scrumban. So if you are using, for example, Scrum and the Kanban as the visual representation, that is called Scrumban. So in this way, we have to understand that those are the tasks associated with that, okay, or maybe the enablers to fulfill that particular task. So to know more about that, you can read the Agile Practice Guide. So probably in the coming sessions, I am going to talk about Agile Practice Guide also, which may be common to both CAPM as well as PMP also. Yeah. Okay. So let us look into go back to the examination content outline here. So project management fundamental and core concepts. So if you look into the task one, it talks about various life cycles and the processes. So we have to understand the difference between project, program, and portfolio. So project is to achieve the requirements or to deliver the product, service, or the result. And when we talk about a program, it is to achieve the strategic benefits, and portfolio is to achieve the strategic objective. and then distinguish between operation and project. So operation is anything which is BAU or business as usual, or anything which is repetitive, which is called operation. Anything which is not BAU, we are going to take it as a project like that. And what are the high level difference between predictive and adaptive? And what is the difference between issue, risk, assumptions, constraints? So these things you have to understand. And of course, you have to understand the professional code of conduct, code of ethics. Once you sign to the PMI website, I mean, once you register there, then obviously by default you are adhering to all these parameters, right? Um, so demonstrate an understanding of the project management planning. So when we talk about the planning, so you have to plan for the scope, you have to plan for schedule, cost, quality, resource, risk, communications, procurement, stakeholder, all those things, right? So we have to understand that. And when we are doing the planning, so there are different techniques that are being used. So there are different tools and techniques you have to understand from the examination point of view. Okay, and demonstrate an understanding of the project roles and responsibility, right? So, for example, as a sponsor, what is your role? Or as a project manager, what is your role? And apart from that, as a project manager role, we have to understand particularly the lesson 3 of the PM Box 6th edition, to understand the talent triangle and which are the powers which we can use it, leadership styles, etc., right? And then determine how to follow and execute planned strategies. So basically, when we want to make the communications happens within the project environment, so to understand the stakeholders' needs, how, when, where, why, what the communication will happen, right? And then come on problem solving tools and techniques. So like brainstorming, or maybe if you're talking about agile, then we have to use the daily stand-up meetings and other things. Okay. So in this way, basically, the fundamental of the project management has been explained in the, or it has been covered in the domain one, right? So when we talk about domain two, it is completely predictive approach. Basically, how the predictive approach will be carried out. So if you are using a project where the scope is clear and the goal is to manage the cost, and I know exactly what we have to do, and we have carried out similar kind of projects, and there is also going to be a single delivery. So that is the definition of the predictive, right? So like this, they have given. I mean, it will be tested in the examination. Similarly, as I was saying that, if you are going to talk about predictive, if you are going to carry the planning, then you have to use the critical path method, or you have to understand the scope of the work. You have to define the scope statement, and then divide that one into WBS like that. Okay. So project control system. So you can think about earned value management system, where we are going to talk about EV, PV, AC, and then cost variance, schedule variance, SPI, CPI, then the forecasting, EAC, ETC, VAC, all those things we have to understand. Okay. So in this way, the domain two has been covered. It's purely predictive. So if you want to know about all these details about, I have covered in the other videos. Of course, that is uploaded almost like 2 years back, but still it holds good. So it is about 16 hours videos. It has been covered. So you can go through that video. It is completely covered about as far as this domain two and domain one is also concerned. Okay. So you can go through that. You will be able to visualize the complete picture of this particular domain one and the domain two. When we talk about the domain three, so that is agile frameworks and the methodology. So here we have to understand about if you are going to use the project, or you have to carry the project in an adaptive way, which is nothing but agile. So agile is basically a combination of iterative and the incremental approach, right? So here we are going to talk about different frameworks and other things. So for example, in agile, we are, as I said earlier, different frameworks are there, like Scrum. We are having FDD, DSTM, Crystal, Extreme Programming, like that. Okay, and also if you are using Agile, typically to make the Agile project success, it always encourages the team should be co-located, and we should have a dedicated team like that. Okay, and if you are not going to have a co-location means the people are sitting in the same physical location. So nowadays it may not be possible. I mean, the world has changed. Now we are all virtual, right? So if you are going to have a virtual, then how the project has to be carried out. Probably there are some challenges which you have to face when the team is spread across. So typically, if you look into the Agile Practice Guide, there are two techniques which advise us. One is called the fishbowl window. The other is called the remote pairing. So anyway, so those things I can cover in the coming videos later, coming sessions. But anyway, so this is the way we have to understand as far as the Agile framework is concerned, and also how the agile will work, basically how the estimation will be carried out. So in the agile we are going to use different ways of using the estimation, like we are going to use Fibonacci series. Basically it is based on the story point related. I think you may be familiar with that, particularly the people who are working nowadays software and IT. It is a very common thing, but don't worry, the people who are in non-IT, don't worry, it is not a rocket science, it is just a simple understanding. Probably I will try to cover detail about in the coming session about all those things with much more examples, how to deal with those estimation techniques. Then planning poker method, or some people will use the t-shirt size method, and how the planning will be carried out. I'm going to talk about that. But anyway, coming back to this particular introduction, so basically task 2 talks about determine how to plan project iterations and other things, okay, and determine how to prepare and execute task management steps, prioritize task in the adaptive project environment. So prioritization, typically it will be done based on the uh, the most important features, or maybe the value which is going to be created to the customer, that will be delivered in the beginning of the project, okay, and the least important or the least value creation user stories or the requirements we are going to deliver later part of the project. So that is how it will be prioritized in the form of a backlog. We'll call it as product backlog. But of course, based on that also, the task will be prioritized. Of course, not only that, dependencies and other things also will be there, okay. I think we can understand that in a general way, right? So that is about domain 3, and domain 4 is little interesting here. So basically, the business analysis framework has been introduced. 27% of the questions will come from business analysis. So here, what are the BA roles also we have to understand. Of course, in the PM Box 6th edition, a few things has been already discussed, or maybe you can look for some of the standard books which is available in the PMI website itself. So once you become member for PMI, you should be able to download that book and read that. Okay, so you can understand better. Say for example, just to understand what is the BA role, you can relate it to maybe a product owner kind of role. Say, the people particularly who are working in agile. So, what is the role of the product owner? He is going to understand the requirements, maybe from the customer, and of course, his role is to maintain all those requirements in the form of a user story, maybe in discussion with the development team or the cross-functional team, we call it as. And then you are going to maintain all the user stories of the requirement in the form of a backlog in the order. Okay, so that is the role of the business analysis. So that is how we have to understand. So that is where the roles and responsibility it will come into picture. And also how to conduct stakeholder communication. So basically, if you talk about normal, what you say, predictive in the traditional approach or the waterfall model, so typically the communication about the project status and other things will happen in a normal way, like sending the reports or through emails and other things. uh, but in agile, typically it is going to happen maybe through Kanban board also. And also there are different tools nowadays, Jira and other things, it is accessible. Or simple, maybe verbal communication is also good, because when we talk about in agile, see what is the concept of the agile. Basically, when we talk about agile manifesto, the principles, the fundamental agile mindset that is that we should be transparency should be maintained, we should be building a safe environment, the culture has to be established. So when we are having a transparency and trust building everything, obviously you need not to create any report, if you ask me. Say, for example, if I am talking to my manager or to the stakeholders rather than manager, I would say, I say that if they ask how the things are happening, how the project progress, If I say that 50% is completed, then that's it. 50% means 50%. If the project is not good, not good. So that kind of transparency has to be established. That is the meaning of communication. But having said that, it depends on the culture of the organization, how to carry the communications and other things. So that is left to you. You have to define a framework. That is where the tailoring and other things will come into picture, right? So probably you can see my other videos where I have talked about a few things from the tailoring, but otherwise you can refer to the PMBOK also. Okay. Anyway, one more angle which I would like to highlight is that seventh edition is also there. There, the focus is on the tailoring aspect is also there in one of the sections. So for that, I am going to have a separate lesson for that, okay, which I am going to describe about that in the future. Okay, and determine how they are gathering the requirements. So as I was saying that in the agile, typically the requirements will be mentioned in terms of the user stories, use cases, etc. Okay, and product roadmaps has to be established. So typically in agile, what happens is that agile release planning, we will call it as. You may be aware that agile release planning is one of the techniques under the develop schedule process under the schedule management lesson. So that is about, if you precisely it is 6.5. So under the 6.5, so the tools and techniques, agile release planning is there. So agile release planning, it talks about the product roadmap. So roadmap is going to have the different releases, and every release is going to have different iterations or the sprints, and every sprint how much of features, which you can call it as user stories, we can deliver, and to how much you can deliver the user stories, you have to have a story point estimation. That is where the task and other things will be created, effort will be created. That is how the entire structure will be divided. So that is about task 4, which you are going to see in the examination content outline, and different methods and other things, uh, how it can influence the business analysis processes. So we have to understand that both in predictive and agile based planning, and then validate requirements through product delivery. So acceptance criteria, so it is straightforward, directly related to one of the processes. If you look into 5 dot, what do you say, 5.5, that is validate scope process, right? So validate scope, if you look into scope management, you will be able to understand the output of that is called acceptance deliverable, right? And but whereas in agile, typically validation will happen through your iteration review or the sprint review, right? Or the demo. If you are using Scrum as a framework, then that is called demo. So in this way, the examination content outline has been pictured, or it has been described in the new changes which is going to happen. And just to look into a few things, so the eligibility and other things is going to remain same, 23 contact hour of education, and the training will be conducted through ATPs and other things. So that is a different thing. CAPM fees and other things structures are there. So, and the question, number of questions, it's going to remain same. Right now also it is 150, so it's going to remain same. And of course, there are some changes which has been there in the bottom. If you see for CAPM examination, there is now 10 minutes break for the examination. The break will appear after completion of the question 1 to 75. So the meaning of this is basically it has been divided into two sections. 1 to 75 you have to answer, then review that, and then submit, and then you can take 10 minutes break, and after that the question number 76 to 150 will appear, right? But important thing is that now you can see, please note, once you review your responses and start your break, you will not be able to return to the questions from the previous examination section. That is very important, which is not there at present, right? So what is the meaning of that? So once you attend the 75 questions, after that review and submit, and then take 10 minutes break, you can come back, then you will not be able to see the first 75 questions. So the next set of questions from 76 to 150 will appear. That is the meaning of that. Okay. So what we are trying to say is that ensure that before submitting you have to review, and of course, unless you are going to submit that, the next set of questions will not appear. Okay. So that is the logic. And So anyway, retaking and other things, I don't want to discuss about that. Let us be positive. So I'm sure that all of you will clear this examination. Yeah. So okay. I think that is about the brief about this examination content outline as far as the CAPM is concerned, which is going to change from 2023 January onwards. So where you can download all these things, you can go to PMI website and then you can click on the certification, and then under that CAPM will be there. If you click on this, you'll be able to see all these things. It's straightforward. Okay. So I'll just Google, CAPM examination content outline. So you'll be able to see everything. And pricing point of view, examination, it's going to be $225 for the person who is going to be a member. Otherwise, it's $300. So I think those are the basic things. Okay, so hope you're able to understand the basic things so far. So you can uh, you can ask many any questions in the forum also, and please subscribe to my channel, so which is BKS Prasad, and click on the subscription. And I will be uploading more and more videos in the coming days. Thank you so much. Have a great day. All the best. Thank you so much.